All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. If you follow Southern hip hop at all, you already know the culture just took a massive, tragic hit. We're talking about the passing of Alley Boy. Now, he wasn't just another guy in the Atlanta rap scene. He literally helped build its foundation. But, as we're gonna see, behind all the classic mixtapes and that legendary street status, well, there was a deeply complex man carrying the heavy weight of street life, some profound personal grief, and a really silent health battle. Listen to these words. Can't be sleeping in the streets. Keep your eyes up. Gotta watch them jealous niggas beside ya. Too much crossin' and crew. They dividin' up. Got my back against the wall. Niggas line up. Man, this incredibly eerie, almost prophetic post from Curt Freeman, who we all know as Alley Boy, was published just 4 days before reports broke that he passed away at 45. Fans immediately flooded the comments. It's this stark, glaring reminder of the strict survival mindset he lived by right up to the very end. The streets were always watching him, and, well, he was always watching right back. Section 1. The Duct Tape Empire. Building a Label. To really grasp why the hip-hop community is reeling so hard right now, we gotta look at what he actually built. Alley Boy wasn't just an artist, he was a CEO. After doing real prison time in the mid-2000s, he came home to East Atlanta's Zone 6, and instead of fading into the background, he teamed up with his brother Big Bank Black, and they built Duct Tape Entertainment. We are not talking about some small-time bootleg operation here. They locked down a major deal with Asylum and Atlantic Records. Throughout the 2010s, he dropped these legendary street mixtapes, projects like The Gift of Discernment that literally had the entire city on lock. And there is a massive, massive difference between the underground architect and the mainstream giants who walked through the doors you helped open. Before superstars like Future, Jeezy, Waka Flocka, or even Gucci Mane reached their absolute peak mainstream dominance, Alley Boy was in the room. He was collaborating with heavyweights from Meek Mill all the way to Master P. He was the guy laying down the concrete foundation of authenticity that the mainstream would eventually build their mansions on. Which brings us to Section 2, Streets versus the Industry, the friction. As we trace his rise, you start to see this really intense conflict brewing between his day-to-day reality and the music business itself. His raw environment absolutely fueled his lyrical talent, sure, but it also constantly fought against his artistic ambition. In a super personal podcast interview with his brother, Alley Boy actually explained that he grew up navigating the really dangerous West Side before eventually finding a safer, protective circle over in Edgewood. He had this undeniable talent for rapping, but he was incredibly candid. He admitted that street hustling fed him way faster than the music industry ever did. Add in the slow, grinding label politics, some serious business and experience, and his absolute, unwavering commitment to street code, it constantly put him at odds with what commercial success demands. He was just unapologetically authentic, tackling everything from street beefs to industry politics totally head-on. Take the physical clash with Young LA over label loyalty and respect, or the time back in 2015 when he was jumped by a group of guys. Instead of trying to hide it to save face, he handled it loudly and publicly on Instagram. And recently, he even caught some heat for defending Gucci Mane against rat accusations. His argument was basically that self-defense and protecting your family shouldn't be considered a violation of street code. He didn't care about the backlash, He cared about his principles. So, looking back at his career, it begs the question, why did the duct tape movement never reach its full commercial potential? We really have to ask ourselves how the crushing, heavy demands of everyday street survival might have hindered their mainstream crossover. Alley Boy had all the talent, the connections, the respect of his peers, but the intense gravity of his environment kept him anchored strictly to the underground. Let's move to Section 3, the silent health battle. The internal war. Because while the streets were this highly visible battlefield, his body was fighting an entirely different war on the inside. Reports indicate that a 10 to 15-year battle with codeine, what we commonly know as lean, along with severe high blood pressure, caused irreparable damage to his kidneys. This wasn't some sudden illness that came out of nowhere. It was a slow, agonizing deterioration driven by the long-term consumption of opiate-laced cough syrup, which, tragically, is an all-too-common story in the hip-hop community. And he didn't hide this either. In this incredibly transparent interview on the Progress Report, he bravely owned up to the lethal reality of his addiction. He literally confessed, "I'm drinking poison all the time." He explained how he used to sell it, so it was just always right there, always accessible. He'd dilute it with ice and sodas, genuinely thinking he was managing his intake. But what he didn't realize until it was way too late was that he was highly sensitive to opiates. Over 15, 20 years, That poison just silently destroyed his kidneys. And that brings us to Section 4, Remembering Alley Boy, A Lasting Legacy. This physical decline he was going through was running parallel to this crushing emotional weight. On the Perspectives podcast, he confessed to Big Bank that the sheer grief of losing friends had completely drained his desire to even rap anymore. He talked about losing foundational Duct Tape members, like Dave, who he called the cleanest, most genuine guy around, and his own artist Trouble, who we tragically lost in 2022. He said it literally tore little parts of his spirit out. I mean, the motivation to write rhymes and paint pictures of their lives just vanished when the very people he was making the music for weren't around to hear it anymore. Today, the hip-hop community is honoring an artist who literally gave everything to his city, leaving behind a legacy built on absolute, unfiltered authenticity. Tributes have been pouring in from fellow Atlanta veterans, guys like Ralo, Rocko, and DJ Scream. And Alley Boy is being remembered not just for a massive 17-year run in Southern hip-hop, but for his raw honesty. He didn't hide his anxiety, he didn't hide his grief, he didn't hide his addiction. He just laid it all out there for the culture to learn from. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. How many other foundational architects of the culture are silently battling the dual poisons of street trauma and addiction? What hidden costs are truly being paid by the pioneers behind the music we consume every day? Alley Boy was an absolute titan who built the very stages that others perform on today. Yet he was quietly fighting for his life against immense physical and emotional trauma. It really makes you wonder who else is suffering in silence. Thanks so much for joining me to explore the incredibly impactful yet tragically short life of Alley Boy.